Thanks for joining us for another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I'm here at the News Forum where all voices matter. Today, our guest is Dr. Gabor Lukacs. He is the president and the founder of Air Passenger Rights, an organization dedicated to the rights of air passengers and the accountability of the airline sector. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
So I guess the first question is, I've described it in my own way, but I'd love to hear in your words as well. What is Air Passenger Rights and why did you set it up in the first place?
We are a nonprofit organization, federally registered, to advocate for passengers through information campaigns, through litigation, to hold both government and airlines accountable to the law. In Canada, aviation is a regulated industry, just like driving on the road. There are rules of the road. There are rules that airlines have to follow in how they treat passengers. But unlike what we see on the road, we see a lot of violations of the rules applicable to passengers, rights of passengers in Canada. And the government is doing preciously little to enforce those rules.
Mm. And just to get into your background a little bit before we go on, we will talk about the substantive issues, of course, but you could have done a lot of different things in your life. I'm just wondering why you've decided to devote a good chunk of your time to this.
It was not a decision. It was more things that happened this way. I travel a lot. I have family in Europe. I also attend conferences. And through those experiences, I came to know how poorly airlines treat passengers and also how much they have no respect for the rule of law. And they feel and they act as if they could just write the law themselves and they were the law themselves, the law unto themselves. And so I began to gradually challenge what the airlines were doing, airline by airline, problem by problem. And over time, I realized that I seem to be the only person in Canada who actually knows how the rules work, who is familiar with these issues, and to whom passengers can come for information. The major change came when in 2014, I was persuaded reluctantly to set up a Facebook group for passenger rights. And that increased the exposure of the issue. And then the next jump happened at the beginning of the pandemic, where airlines were withholding money from passengers, refunds for flights that the airlines themselves canceled. And that resulted in a tectonic change and a kind of exponential growth in our membership in the Facebook group.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, let me just focus on the complexity of the situation as a starting point here, because it does seem very complex for the air passenger to figure out what they're entitled to, who to go to if there's an issue. That's the kind of thing that you've noticed as well, right?
The rules are very complex, unnecessarily complex compared to European Union, for example. But there's also the problem that airlines act in a way that they pretend as if their policies were above the law. So normally when you go to buy something in a store, both the seller and the buyer yourself understand that you all have to follow the law. With the airline industry, you more see the typical corporate attitude where if you have a complaint, they're going to tell you, this is our policy, and they completely disregard what the law actually says.
Interesting. Let's delve into that as we move forward. But first, I want to get your take on the current situation. Air travel seems to be returning to normal after COVID lockdowns. What are the trends that you're following?
We are seeing still trends of airlines selling flights that they don't necessarily intend to or able to operate because there are no sufficient passengers for a given flight, and then canceling those flights or changing the flights in a way that significantly inconveniences passengers. We have also seen, of course, over the last holiday season, a complete meltdown for the second time last year of the air travel in Canada. Are we returning to some normal? Well, that's yet to be seen. What concerns me is what that new normal is going to be. We are seeing an increase to an attitude by airlines that when passengers see compensation that is owed to them under existing law, they just feel that they can offer some kind of nonsensical explanation and get away with it.
Right.
Because the rules are so complex and it's so difficult to enforce rights for the average passenger.
We're going to delve into that because that's a really important point. We are going to take a commercial break right now. We'll be back with our guest, Dr. Gabor Lukacs, after the break. Please stay with us.